And I'll just walk down here and I'll introduce each of the elites who are participating today and have them say a little bit about who they are. And then Chris will ask them some generic questions about their training, what they do, how they do what they do, and then we'll encourage all of you to participate as well and ask some questions and find out how we can make ourselves all that much better. From San Francisco, California, Miss Tyler Stewart. Tyler, as far as I know, set the world record for the bike course at Ironman, Texas last month in 4:42. She knows the course record here at EagleMan is Natasha Bobman's, I believe, 2:15. So she has a 62-tooth chain ring, I think you told me she was bringing. Try to see how fast she can go. Welcome, Tyler Stewart. Tyler also is an animal lover. Has a great dog washing service in San Francisco that we visited last October on our way back. And so if you're in San Francisco and you have your dog with you, go see Wags, as it's called, correct? There you go. I get 10%. Next to Tyler here is Miss Samantha Warner. And Samantha, among other things, was the 2010 EagleMan champion here, the first time participating. In addition, and we've already talked about this, but she had a similar cardiac condition as some good friends of mine. Were required heart surgery early this year, and obviously she was concerned about the future of her career. So much so that she got back to training and she won in record form Ironman New Zealand in March. Samantha Warner. Well, this is kind of Italian stud from New Zealand. Ironman 70.3 world champion and two-time EagleMan champion. Real nice guy. From New Zealand, Mr. Terenzo Bozzone. This young lady with the great hairdo and the barrette is to make, I guess, becoming part of her trademark look. Burst on the scene a few years ago and has since then taken the sport by storm with no less than, I believe, near 10 70.3 victories in the last couple of years. Last year was obviously one of her greatest years that she's had, I'm sure she would agree, when she set the world record for Ironman marathon, I believe, certainly at Kona, in 2:53 and change, winning the 2010 Ironman Triathlon World Champion from Australia by way of Boulder, Colorado, Miss Marinda Carford. Additionally, try as she may, she just couldn't catch Samantha at New Zealand. So that was a race I wish we all could have watched. But Samantha had a bit of a lead off the bike, and Marinda had a little hardy on the bike, but true to her form, hung in there and almost made it back to the finish line to really test Samantha. But it was a great race in Ironman New Zealand. So two great champions right here in these two young ladies. From Australia and also now living in Austin, Texas, real good friend of mine in our sport, one of the class guys from Australia, Richie Cunningham. And also from New Zealand, was a world champion at the Olympic distance. Now, of course, American citizen racing for Team USA, hoping to get an Olympic spot in the 2012 games, 2012 in London. But more importantly, first time here at EagleMan, won our Columbia Triathlon a few years ago, Mr. Matty Reed.
Sort of interactive, but I'm racing these guys, so I'm going to keep my feet up just like they are. So, yeah, I'd prefer to be sitting on the panel over here, but I must be getting too old and, I don't know, maybe talk a bit more garbage than these guys and girls. So, I think we're lucky we've got Tyler. Everyone else is from Australia and New Zealand, so without her we'd probably just be bitching and arguing with each other. There's a great rivalry between our two nations, so it's great to have Tyler here. But I'd like to start with Marinda. It's I guess it's probably the appropriate place to start, having a World Ironman champion here. Marinda won the title at the Subaru EagleMan back in '09. I think that was her third attempt. And last night she sort of mentioned coming here as a younger athlete, and she was racing Natasha Bardman. And I guess just learning and getting into that professional groove, Natasha just kept smashing her on the bike and sort of taking out the win. So having that experience here, Marinda's, I mean, one of the most consistent and best performers in the sport. And it's funny now, even when I race and she's in the field, maybe sitting in third, fourth, and you think, well, I'm not having a great day, but I do not want to get chipped. And you know she's going to be running. She's consistently pulling off sub 120 runs. So once again, tomorrow, if I'm having a bad day, I'm just going to make sure she doesn't beat me on the run. So she's very impressive, but probably not the year she's used to. Looking at women's racing, it's evolved so much in recent years. It's so competitive, the fields are so deep, and I think just taking out a victory in any of these races is a huge achievement. And looking at her races this year, first in California, 70.3, third at St. Croix, second in Ironman New Zealand, and second on the weekend. And normally I think we'd expect her to almost win every single race like she was doing last year, but the fields are just so competitive. And I guess the first question for me for Rinny is the fact that it is competitive. Obviously you want to win each weekend, but you've got to take pride in every victory you take these days.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I attack every race wanting to win. I toe the line, you know, a race to win, but you know, you can't always pull that off. And at the end of the day, you need to look at your results and figure out if you've actually had a good day in terms of where you're at in training and in terms of where you had expected to be. I mean, if you go out there and have a fantastic day, I mean, last weekend I got second at Quasi. I ran 3 minutes faster than I did the year before and got second, and I was ecstatic with that. It was easy that a good friend of mine was the one who beat me, so that didn't sting as much as maybe being beaten by somebody else. But yeah, I mean, early in the year, my form actually hasn't been that good. I mean, and the same flip side of the coin, I won Oceanside 70.3, and I was really quite disappointed with my race there. I mean, I had a great run, but I've no idea how I pulled that out because I felt horrible on the bike. I almost wanted to stop. There were points on the bike where I thought I didn't even feel like I was racing. I felt like I was out doing a tour of California. But I stuck with it and just put together the best run I could and end up with the win. So, I mean, I was disappointed with that race, but I won on that day. So, but earlier in the year, I mean, it's been a different year for me. Coming off that Ironman World Championship, you have a lot more obligations and maybe opportunities, and I wanted to grasp those opportunities while they were there. You never know if that opportunity or that title's ever going to come around again. So my off season was a lot busier than it normally is, and yeah, I mean, it's just been a different start to the year. But I feel like I'm starting to race the way I should be racing and race to my ability, and hopefully the rest of the season will be a little bit more smooth for me.
Just sticking with Rinny, obviously being defending champion, Hawaii's the A race of the year. I mean, it always is, but our calendar has obviously changed with 70.3 Worlds, moving from Clearwater in November to September in Vegas. I mean, looking at that course, and I mean, even at the men's level, it's about 48 minutes slower, so 48 minutes tougher. There's a chance it's going to be 110, 115 degrees. We chatted briefly last night. How are you going to try to balance the two races, and where are you going to put, obviously, priority?
Yeah, I mean, in years past, obviously, trying to back up from Kona with 70.3 Worlds 3 weeks later was always a real challenge, and the last couple of years, I opted not to do the 70.3 World Champs, and I was a bit disappointed because, I mean, I love racing and I love getting on the line for World Championship races. And having that one 3 weeks after Kona, and I guess both times in Kona I raced well, so I sort of had other things to do, like party and and enjoy myself. But this year, yeah, it's 4 weeks earlier, and I looked at the year, and when I sit down with my coach at the end of every year, and we map out the season ahead, and we map out what races we're going to do, where we're going to get our quality in, where we're going to get our training blocks in for Kona, and I always have a race 4 weeks before. But I was talking to Chris Lee last night, and I've been talking to a bunch of athletes and going back and forth with my coach, and I'm actually not sure if I will race the 70.3 World Champs this year. just given that it is going to be a really tough race. I mean, I'm all for a tough race. I normally go to Muskoka, which is actually like a 95-kilometre bike, very hilly bike, very hilly run, but it's really cool up there. And if it's going to be 110, 115, I'm just a little worried how much that would take out of you leading into Kona. So I mean, I'm on the fence now. If everything's going fantastic and I'm feeling good and I'm ready to, you know, have a great race, then yeah, maybe I should go to the World Champs. But you know, the other side of the coin is maybe it'd be nice to just go back up to Muskoka. I mean, I've done that race the last 2 years leading into Kona and it's worked out well, so why mess with the formula that's worked out well in the past? But having said that, I do like racing World Championship courses on days where everybody's ready to win.